looking at the images coming out this week, it's been unbelievably just horrific what we're seeing. How have you responded to it, Ros Altmann?
Well, if you could see this, you'd know that I am wearing yellow and blue, which I have been all the time. I mean, we just have to find a way to show solidarity. The pictures coming out are absolutely harrowing, and it doesn't bear thinking about what the civilians are going through in order to protect their democratic rights to freedom and the freedom that we all take for granted. I mean, in a way, what's happened is they are fighting on the front line for Western European and perhaps global democracy. And the fact that they are fighting so bravely and so strongly and have managed to overcome such horrendous attacks and so much pain and suffering is something that I think most of us are just marveling at and feeling so much for them and wanting to do whatever we can to help.
Diane Hayter, the Prime Minister's just announced more weaponry being sent to Ukraine. Do you support the extent of heavy weaponry that's going there now?
I certainly do. Interesting. Let's answer first the question you put to Ros.
Of course.
Do you know it's been radio more than images that's done it for me. Do you know hearing it on the radio has actually, I wake up in the morning and you switch on the radio and each day you just wish it wasn't happening. And this is 2022. And when I heard, and I'm sorry to say this in front of Ros because it'll hurt her even more, that they're using crematoria to burn the bodies of the people they've killed, I just feel I'm back, in something in the last century that we thought had gone. So yes, I do absolutely think we throw everything at them. But one of the things that I'm also keen to say is one of the things that the Prime Minister just said was an appeal, in a sense, to the people of Russia. And I think we all have an obligation. Any of us who either have any contacts, sit on committees with Russians, know anybody there, should be just buying our newspapers, bundling them up, put some post on them, and sending them over to libraries there, to schools there, to universities there, to anyone that we might know in our professional life. Because clearly they're not getting the images. And those people within Russia, just as was in Germany before, they need to stand up and say, this is not in our name, and they can't turn away. Ros, so yes, the weaponry, but also I think the citizens need to have the information on which they can say, stop this.
Ros, your response to the echoes of the past that Diane was talking about there.
Yeah, well, I've grown up hearing about how Nazi Germany persecuted Jews and the Roma and singled out certain groups. Here you have an entire country being singled out, if you like, because it happens to want to be free and want and has been able in the past to live without the dictatorship and draconian rules that Russia wants to impose. And we saw in the 1930s that the Western world did not do enough. And even into the early 40s, there was just almost a sense of denial. And of course, we didn't have the kind of media that we now do, so that people are seeing in real time some of the dreadful atrocities that are happening. And when one also bears in mind that we have a media here that is able to report, and brave journalists and reporters and camera people who are risking their lives, and some are sadly losing their lives, to bring that news back to us, I believe it's incumbent upon all of us to act and to react. And I would encourage the government to do as much as possible, as fast as possible, to make it really painful for everybody in Russia and anyone who supports Putin or has his ear and could make a difference to stand up and say, this is not acceptable, this must stop, and we cannot accept that this is going on.
When you say as much as possible, as fast as possible, what's the sort of limit of what you would be prepared for the government and other European countries to contemplate?
Well, I think it's short-sighted if one believes that there isn't going to be any pain for the populations in our countries if we are to really stand up against Russia. For example, reducing or cutting the ties on energy. That could hurt our people too. But in the end, if we allow this to happen, I don't think we should delude ourselves that somehow the threat of Russia will go away. Because if Ukraine is overrun and Russia wins, then who knows what's next, and who knows what will happen. So more sanctions, more, well, humanitarian aid, absolutely. We have to get as much food, medicines, and I think...
And sort out the fiasco over refugees.
Well,
I do think...
No excuse for that.
Yeah, I find it extraordinary that could happen. Because most of these people don't want to come and live here. They just want to come and stay here. It's safe to go home. Their men folk are still there, often fighting. Their families are going to be scattered. What they actually want is a case of safety, probably hopefully only for weeks or months. So we're not talking about people wanting to, I mean, some of them may want to, but most of them won't want to settle here. We just need to let them in quickly so that also they can start being the ambassadors back to the people they know. I mean, a lot of them will know people in Russia. So the quicker we can get them here with telephones and stuff like that, so they can be going back to, communicate with people they know in Russia, to say, look, this is what's happening. It's all part of the attack. I mean, I think we have to make clear that not just Putin will never, ever, ever leave Russia again because he'll be arrested, but actually anyone who facilitated this within Russia has to be up for being arrested if they put one foot beyond Russia afterwards. And they need to know that we will hold them to account.
I mean, we do have to worry about national security. We do have to make sure that we know who these people are. And I know that the minister, Richard Harrington, is trying his very best. But the procedures are cumbersome and slow.
Is Priti Patel trying her very best, or should she be considering her position beyond the apology?
Oh, I think it's even worse. I think she probably is trying her very best, and it's just not good enough. I think there is an absolute weakness that we have a Home Secretary at a time like this.
Roz?
Who actually can't do the job. So I think, there's a real capability absence there.
Roz, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, the efforts are being made, but there are some roadblocks which one absolutely, I think Priti needs to get control, but also totally important that we have to know who's coming and we have to have, some kind of security checks. And we also, I think, very importantly, need to stand strong and firm with the rest of Europe and make sure that we can encourage them, because they're much closer physically to the action, if you like, and they will be the first line of the threats. But we need to work with them to ensure that the whole of Europe stands up together against what is happening.